The first thing I think when I hear the name Sybyl Atwood is boundless energy, and optimism is another word that comes to mind. I would say that she's also known for her belief in the underdog, people that are marginalized in society, people who are poor, maybe the LGBT community, religious faiths that are not the predominant faith in the United States. She was always looking for ways to help those people, and so I think of her as a progressive person. I think of her as a champion for social justice, a champion for economic justice. This is a woman who came of age in the 1930s and 40s in the American South, which at that time was still very segregated by law and by custom for African Americans. And she was a champion of their rights and moved north to Chicago and then on to Flint. And she was really looking to help the underdog. So I think of her boundless energy, even when she was ill with cancer. She was using her voice and her energy to make things better in the community. So I think of someone who is just really energetic and always looking to make the world a better place, especially here in Flint.
When I hear the name Sybyl Atwood, I think of compassion with leadership. I really think that she had this quality about her that you just couldn't stop listening and you couldn't respond to what she was saying. She was very influential in my life.
Greatness. Sybyl is and was this incredible person that just exuded dynamic personality. She was easy to talk to, great to listen to, and when I hear her name, that's where I kind of go to.
The Sybyl Atwood that I know worked for Resource Genesee as a volunteer coordinator. She was really a connector of people. She had no problem telling you what she thought, and you were going to listen to her. So she was really powerful, and she made Resource Genesee a force of good for this community.
Sybyl was a gal who did a lot of work before she came to Flint, but when she did, she started working at some nonprofit organizations and became the person I remember her as, who worked in the service industry for over 40 years and provided things for people who had trouble providing for themselves. And that doesn't mean that they couldn't afford it. It might mean that they didn't know where to get it. It might mean that they struggled just trying to connect themselves to a resource. And Sybyl became that connector. And one of the things that she would do is bring out the best in you. And when she would do that, it wouldn't be easy. Quite often you might find yourself getting mad at her because of what she was asking. But the thing about it is, you couldn't be mad at her. You could only be mad at yourself because she wouldn't ask you to do what she knew you couldn't do. So you would figure that out and accomplish the task and know that Sybyl was right all along. And that's a personality trait that I've rarely found in people. And with Sybyl, it was a gift and it was a great attribute to her personality.
So I started work with Sybyl in February of the year 2000. I was a 28-year-old new executive director of Resource Genesee, and Sybyl had been around for 40 years doing her work here in Flint. I was new to Flint, or relatively new to Flint. She walked into my office that morning and said, "Hello, new boss. What are we going to do together? How are we going to change this community?" So when I say that she had a ton of energy and enthusiasm, and she was sort of unstoppable, this unstoppable force of nature, that was my first example and my first exposure to that with her. Literally her walking into my office and saying, "Let's roll up our sleeves and do good work for Flint." And from there, for 7 years, she and I worked together on many different projects for the community. You know, from getting native plants planted in gardens, community gardens around Flint, you know, where there's vacant land, to try to spruce it up and bring it back, to poverty, anti-poverty initiatives where we were trying to get people training so that they could move into the workforce and jobs. You know, Flint is one of the poorest cities in this state, still is even today in 2018, but it was poor then, and those are the issues that we worked on, trying to help people get what they needed.
I first met Sybyl Atwood when I began working with a group for Mott Community College's Community Outreach Partnership Grant. She had the idea of putting native plants in the city for a beautification effort through that grant. And she sort of helped the group that was floundering to move forward in a positive direction, focusing on solutions and, you know, not looking behind, but looking forward to making the project successful. And for me, that was a huge example of true leadership, you know, looking at what can be done, not what went wrong necessarily, because you can't really fix that and go backwards. You only have what you can do going forward. So she was able to be that vision for the group.
Sybyl was my neighbor, and I loved being next to her and living next door to her. She made living in Carriagetown a true joy. She was wonderful to share dinner with and have dinner parties with, and she went way outside of the box in terms of creating friendships and long-lasting relationships. And I was blessed and happy to be part of her inner network.
She would come to work, and I worked with her for 7 years. She would come to work, and there were days where the chemotherapy and the cancer treatment was really weighing on her, but she would literally be at her phone and at her desk answering calls, connecting people with resources, bringing people together in the community, but then she would take a rest and lay on a cot in the office so that she could get her energy back, and then she would be back on the phones.
So my favorite memory of Sybyl was when she came to my house in the final years of her life. And she was asked a question by a reporter for wisdom, or a statement of wisdom. And she thought a couple seconds, and she said, "Remain insatiably curious." And I replay that in my mind several times because it's an incredible gift that she gave me. To watch her pass was incredible because I thought I knew a lot about living, and she taught me a lot about dying. And it's very hard for someone to do that. So one of my favorite memories is being with her in that transitional phase.
What would I like to say to Sybyl? I would say that a lot of things, you know, of course, that we miss her, and I miss her personally, but that we most miss her example for this community. And, you know, that leads into why we created the Sybyl Award in the first place. You know, all of us are going to pass at some point, right? But we hope that we leave some kind of positive legacy. Sybyl would never in a million years want an award named after her. She would have been very much against the idea of us naming something after her and, you know, announcing the Sybyl Award every year. But I can go against her wishes, knowing that what we are doing is elevating others in her name, and that it's really not so much about Sybyl anymore. It's about people who exemplify her spirit, her determination, her energy around helping this community. So I would say to her, thanks for setting an example. You know, she was a woman who was in her 70s when she passed away, but she had started out in the rural South. She was a progressive person, believed in civil rights and, you know, bringing people along who'd been kept out of the mainstream. So she came of age at a time where that was not easy. It's easier today in 2018 to be a progressive person, but she came alive in an era when it was not so easy. So I would also thank her for doing that when it wasn't an easy thing to do.
I'd like to say to Sybyl, I think you'd be very happy with the way things have happened after your passing. I think that it's an honor, and always has been, to know you and to carry on, as you would say, in your fashion.
Sybyl, thank you for your leadership, your compassion, for showing Flint a way forward, helping each other, realizing that when there's a criminal element, we are of it. We are not separate from it. When there's someone who's hungry and hurting, we should be feeling compassion and helping in those situations. And you showed us the way. Your leadership showed us the way, and thank you. Congratulations, you are an awesome lady. Your life mattered. To the honorees of the Sybyl Award, the nominees and the winners, you are all fantastic people. You are all being celebrated for the work that exemplifies the characteristics that Sybyl portrayed, and you're doing it your way. You may not have even known Sybyl, and we know, and we recognize that you are a community change agent. Thank you for your compassion. Thank you for helping Flint and Genesee County.
I would say to the nominees and the winners of the Sybyl Award, congratulations for carrying on in Sybyl's legacy. What we know is that there are literally hundreds and probably thousands of people that on a daily basis in this community do amazing things. So congratulations to all those folks. And you are filling big shoes when we say that you're worthy of being nominated for the Sybyl Award and for being a recipient of it.
What I would like to say to the winners of the award is that congratulations, of course, and thank you so much for doing what you do. And to even be nominated is wonderful. You've reached a pinnacle that many people in the community strive for. To win is 10 times better.